Have you ever stopped to consider that the entire quality of your life might be determined not by the events that happen to you, but by the tiny, almost invisible, judgments you make about those events in the split second after they occur? The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his private journal, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." This isn't just a poetic observation, it's a profound psychological truth. It suggests that our inner world, the quiet conversations we have with ourselves, the assumptions we never question, the meanings we assign, is the actual architect of our reality. And the most powerful transformations begin not with changing our circumstances, but with altering the very lens through which we see them. This is the quiet power of a cognitive shift. Today, we are going to explore 23 of these profound mental realignments, each one a cornerstone of ancient Stoic wisdom. These are not complicated psychological techniques or quick fixes. They are deep, internal pivots in perception that have the potential to quietly revolutionize everything you know about navigating challenge, finding peace, and living a meaningful life. Imagine being stuck in traffic and feeling not a surge of frustration, but a sense of calm acceptance, or facing a significant setback and viewing it not as a catastrophe, but as a necessary and even welcome part of your journey. These shifts make that possible. They are the operating system for a mind that remains unshaken by the chaos of the external world. This journey we're about to take together is an exploration of that untapped power within your own judgment. We will walk through concepts like the Dichotomy of Control, which teaches us to focus only on what is truly ours to command, and Amor, Fati, the radical acceptance of one's fate. We will look at practices like the view from above to gain perspective, and Memento Mori to instill urgency and gratitude. Each of these 23 shifts is a key that can unlock a more resilient, focused, and virtuous way of being. So, as we begin, I invite you to open your mind to the possibility that the greatest change you can ever make starts not out there in the world, but right here in the quiet space of your own thoughts. The first and most fundamental Stoic shift is understanding what is truly yours to command. This is the cornerstone, the bedrock upon which the entire philosophy is built, and it's known as the Dichotomy of Control. The core principle is deceptively simple yet life-altering in its application. It asks us to make a clear and decisive distinction between two categories of things in our lives. On one hand, there are the things that are within our complete control. These are our own judgments, our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, and most importantly, the actions we choose to take. This is our internal world, the realm of our own mind and will. Everything else, and this is the vast majority of what happens to us, falls into the second category, everything that is not within our control. This includes our reputation, our wealth, our health, our body, our past, what other people say or think about us, the weather, and the actions of others. The foundational text for this idea comes from the Stoic teacher Epictetus, who opens his manual for life, the Enchiridion, with this powerful statement: "Some things are within our power, while others are not." Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. Consider a modern scenario that almost everyone can relate to: being stuck in a traffic jam. You are running late for an important meeting. The cars are at a standstill. The clock is ticking. The natural, automatic reaction is one of frustration, anxiety, and anger. You might pound the steering wheel, curse the other drivers, and feel your blood pressure rise. This is the default setting for most of us. Now, apply the Dichotomy of Control. Ask yourself, Is the traffic jam within my control? Did I cause it? Can I make the cars in front of me move? The answer is a clear and resounding no. The traffic, the other drivers, the timing of the lights, these are all externals. They are not up to you. What, then, is within your control in this exact moment? Your judgment about the situation. You can choose to label this event as a catastrophe, or you can choose to see it as a neutral occurrence. Your actions are within your control. You can choose to use this time productively, perhaps by listening to an audiobook, making a hands-free call to inform the meeting you'll be late, or simply using the moments of stillness to take some deep breaths and calm your mind. Your desire to be on time is natural, but your attachment to that specific outcome is what causes the suffering. By shifting your focus entirely to what is yours to command, your response, the emotional turbulence simply evaporates, replaced by a calm and pragmatic acceptance of reality. This is the quiet power of the first cognitive shift. So, take a moment and think back over your last week. Can you identify one specific situation where you felt stressed, angry, or anxious? Now replay that scene in your mind and apply the filter of the dichotomy. What part of that situation was truly within your sphere of control? How would focusing only on that part have changed your emotional response and your actions? This simple act of mental sorting is the first step toward a quieter, more resilient mind. Now, let's consider how quickly your mind labels the events of your day. Almost instantly, without any conscious effort, you categorize things as good or bad, fortunate or unfortunate. That email from your boss is stressful. The rainy weather is ruining your plans. This traffic is a nightmare. We live our lives on a kind of autopilot of judgment. But what if this automatic labeling is the very source of much of our unnecessary suffering? The second profound cognitive shift in Stoicism is the move from this immediate judgment to simple, detached observation. It's about learning to press pause on that internal critic and instead just see things for what they are without the added layer of our subjective valuation. This practice is about stripping away the initial impression that an event is inherently good or bad. Marcus Aurelius dedicated significant thought to this, advising himself to remove the assumption of good or bad from the impressions that flood his mind. He wrote, "Don't let the force of an impression when it first hits you knock you off your feet. Just say to it, hold on a moment, let me see who you are and what you represent. Let me put you to the test." This is the essence of the shift. It's creating a small space, a moment of breathing room between the event itself and your reaction to it. In that space, you can choose to see the event as neutral, a simple occurrence in the world until you have had time to apply your reason. The event itself is just an event. It is our judgment that paints it with the colors of pain or pleasure. Take a powerful example that many fear, losing a job. The immediate, automatic judgment is almost universally negative. It's a catastrophe, a failure, a threat to your security and identity. This judgment triggers a cascade of anxiety, fear, and perhaps even shame. But what if, using this stoic shift, you could initially view it as a neutral event? The facts are simple. Your employment at a certain company has ended. That's it. Everything else, the meaning, the implications, the emotional weight, is an add-on, a story you are telling yourself. From this neutral starting point, you can then begin to apply reason. Could this ending be the necessary push toward a career that is more aligned with your values? Might it free up time to reconnect with family or pursue a long-neglected passion? History is filled with stories of people for whom a job loss was the catalyst for their greatest success. The event didn't change, the judgment of it did. By withholding that initial negative label, you open the door to resilience, creativity, and a more objective assessment of your options. This shift requires consistent practice because our minds are wired for quick judgments. It starts with catching yourself in the act. The next time you feel that familiar surge of frustration or disappointment, take that moment Marcus Aurelius described. Ask yourself a simple question: am I reacting to the event itself, or to my immediate, unquestioned judgment about the event? This single question can create the space needed to choose a different, more empowering response. So let's try this now. Bring to mind a recent event that you immediately judged as negative. It could be a disagreement, a minor inconvenience, or a piece of criticism. Now, gently set that initial judgment aside. Look at the event as a neutral observer might. What are the bare facts stripped of all emotional charge? From this clearer vantage point, what other interpretations or perspectives might exist? Could there be a hidden lesson, an opportunity for growth, or simply a neutral occurrence that you've been waiting with unnecessary distress? Love whatever happens. This is perhaps one of the most radical and transformative commands in all of philosophy, a phrase made famous by Friedrich Nietzsche, but one that beats with a profoundly stoic heart. It is the third cognitive shift known as Amor Fati, which translates to a love of one's fate. This goes far beyond mere acceptance or grudging tolerance. Acceptance can sometimes feel like giving up, like swallowing a bitter pill because you have no other choice. Amor Fati is different. It is an active, enthusiastic embrace of everything that life throws at you, the setbacks, the obstacles, the unexpected detours, not as misfortunes, but as essential and even beneficial components of the unique path that is your life. The Stoic roots of this idea run deep. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to welcome every event, however difficult, because it was woven into the fabric of the universe for a reason. He wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." Similarly, Epictetus taught that every circumstance is an opportunity to practice virtue. He said, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens, then you will be happy." This is the essence of Amor Fati. It is not a passive resignation to a predetermined destiny. On the contrary, it is an active and dynamic engagement with reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. It is the decision to find the value and the purpose in what is actually occurring, and to use it as fuel for growth. Consider the historical example of Seneca the Younger. When the young Emperor Nero, threatened by Seneca's influence and integrity, ordered him to commit suicide, Seneca was faced with the ultimate test of his philosophy. This was not the fate he would have chosen, yet accounts from the time describe him meeting his end with profound calm and courage. He comforted his grieving friends, stating that what seemed like a calamity was simply a return to the natural state of all things. While this is an extreme example, it illustrates the principle perfectly. Throughout his life, Seneca had already practiced this embrace of difficulty. Earlier, when he was exiled to the island of Corsica by the Emperor Claudius on a trumped-up charge, he did not succumb to despair. Instead, he used those years of forced isolation as a period of immense productivity and reflection, writing some of his most significant philosophical works and consoling his mother through letters. He turned what society saw as a punishment into a source of strength and intellectual contribution. He loved that fate by extracting every ounce of meaning and purpose from it. So how do we begin to apply this shift to our own, less dramatic challenges? It starts with a subtle but powerful change in our internal language. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" we can learn to ask, "What can this make of me?" Think about a current difficulty in your own life. It might be a strained relationship, a financial pressure, or a personal failure. The conventional reaction is to fight it, to resent it, to see it as an alien invader disrupting your peace. Amor Fati invites you to try a different approach. What if this challenge arrived not to punish you, but to train you? What if it is the precise ingredient needed to develop a patience, a resilience, or a wisdom you currently lack? This is not about pretending the difficulty is pleasant. It is about recognizing that it is necessary. It is about understanding that a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor, and that our character is forged in the fires of adversity, not in the comfort of calm. Can you look at that current obstacle and begin, even just a little, to see it not as a roadblock but as the road itself? How might your relationship with that problem change if you started to believe it was an indispensable part of your journey, preparing you for something you cannot yet see? Now take a deep breath and try something with me. In your mind's eye, zoom out from whatever is causing you stress right at this moment. Pull back from the screen, from the room, from the building. See your city from above, then your country, the entire planet hanging in the blackness of space. This act of mental expansion is the fourth cognitive shift, a powerful Stoic exercise known as the view from above, and it was a regular practice for the Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He would consciously remind himself of the sheer scale of the cosmos and the fleeting blink of human history to drain his immediate anxieties of their overwhelming power. The core idea is breathtakingly simple yet profoundly effective. By contemplating the vastness of the universe and the river of time, we can shrink our personal problems down to their true, manageable size, reducing both our anxiety and our tendency toward self-importance. This is not about dismissing your very real feelings or the significance of your life. It is about placing them within a much larger, more objective context. When you are caught in the grip of a crisis, a financial worry, a heated argument, a professional rejection, your field of vision narrows until that single problem fills your entire world. It feels all-consuming. The view from above shatters that illusion. It asks you to consider that your life, with all its triumphs and troubles, is just one among billions on a small rock orbiting an average star, which is itself one of countless stars in a galaxy among billions of galaxies. In the grand timeline of the cosmos, your entire existence from birth to death is less than a single heartbeat. This might sound intimidating or even depressing at first, but for the Stoic, it is a source of immense liberation. That problem that feels like it will break you, in the context of a billion years, it is a microscopic event. This perspective does not make your actions meaningless. Instead, it frees you from the tyranny of taking yourself and your struggles too seriously, allowing you to engage with them with a calmer, more reasoned clarity. The practical application of this shift is something you can do anywhere in just a few moments. The next time you feel that familiar knot of overwhelmed tightening in your chest, pause. Close your eyes if you can. Don't try to solve the problem immediately. Instead, take a journey of the mind. Picture the Earth as the ancient Stoics imagined it, or as we now know it from satellite images, a beautiful, fragile blue marble. See the continents, the oceans, the swirling clouds. Then, imagine the countless generations of humans who have lived and died on its surface, each with their own loves, losses, ambitions, and fears. Your current worry is just one thread in this immense, ancient tapestry. This exercise is not an escape from reality. It is a tool for gaining a more accurate and less emotionally charged view of it. It returns a sense of proportion to your mind. So, let's bring this home with a direct question. Think about the single biggest worry occupying your mind today. It feels urgent and significant, and in your daily life it is, but now project your imagination forward. How might that same worry look from the perspective of someone looking back 100 years from now? Will it have shaped the course of your entire life, or will it have been a passing challenge, a lesson learned, a footnote in your personal history? This shift in vantage point can instantly create the mental space you need to stop reacting from a place of panic and start responding from a place of perspective. At first glance, the idea of deliberately thinking about what could go wrong sounds like a recipe for anxiety. Why would anyone willingly dwell on potential misfortune? But the Stoics, particularly Seneca, saw this practice as a form of mental inoculation, and they called it Premeditatio Malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils. This fifth cognitive shift is not about pessimistic forecasting or expecting the worst. It is the exact opposite. It is a proactive exercise in emotional and psychological preparedness, designed to strip future difficulties of their power to shock and destabilize us when they arrive. Seneca offers some of the clearest guidance on this practice in his letters. He writes, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." And in another letter, he advises, "Rehearse them in your mind: exile, torture, war, shipwreck." Now, he is not suggesting we live in a state of constant dread about these extreme possibilities. His point is profound. By mentally walking through these scenarios in the safety of our own minds, we accomplish two crucial things. First, we realize that we can, in fact, endure them. The unknown is always more frightening than the known. By familiarizing ourselves with a potential hardship, we reduce the terror of its novelty. Second, and more importantly, we come to understand that even in the worst-case scenario, our core self, our ability to choose our response, remains intact. The goal is to arrive at a place of acceptance beforehand, so that if a challenge does materialize, we meet it not with panic, but with a calm and reasoned resilience. Let's bring this down to a situation you might face this very week. Imagine you have a crucial conversation scheduled with your manager about a promotion or a raise. The natural tendency is to fantasize about the ideal outcome, to picture everything going perfectly. Premeditatio Malorum asks you to spend a few minutes considering the opposite. What if the answer is no? What if the conversation becomes tense or awkward? Mentally rehearsing this possibility is not admitting defeat. It is strategic preparation. By visualizing your manager declining your request, you give yourself the space to plan your response. How will you maintain your composure? What will you say? You might decide in advance that you will respond with gratitude for the consideration and ask for feedback on how to improve. This mental rehearsal transforms a potential emotional reaction into a planned, dignified action. The setback, if it happens, loses its sting because you have already met it and shaken its hand in your mind. You have already lived through it once, and you survived. This practice applies equally to smaller, daily concerns. What if your important presentation has technical difficulties? What if the project you've poured your heart into fails to get approval? By premeditating these possibilities, you are not inviting them to happen. You are simply acknowledging their existence as a part of life's unpredictable nature. This act of acknowledgement is incredibly empowering. It moves you from being a passive victim of circumstance to an active participant in your own emotional state. You are building a mental fortress not out of fear but out of foresight. So let's make this practical right now. Pause for just a moment and ask yourself a simple question. What is one thing you fear might go wrong today or this week? It doesn't have to be a major catastrophe. It could be a difficult interaction, a minor disappointment, or a logistical hiccup. Now, instead of pushing that thought away, lean into it gently. Play out the scenario in your mind. See yourself facing that specific challenge. How would your wisest, most resilient self respond? What would that version of you do or say to navigate the situation with equanimity? By spending just a few moments in this mental rehearsal, you are not worrying. You are training, you are installing a program of calm resilience that will run automatically if and when you ever need it. Marcus Aurelius gave us one of the most potent phrases in all of Stoicism when he wrote in his Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. At first, this sounds like a contradiction, even a paradox. How can a barrier actually clear the path? This sixth cognitive shift is the key to unlocking that riddle, and it involves a fundamental transformation in how we perceive the challenges that life inevitably places before us. It's the shift from seeing obstacles as barriers to recognizing them as the very raw material we need to build a stronger character. An obstacle is not a stop sign, it is the training ground itself. This Stoic perspective is far more robust and actionable than simple positive thinking. Positive thinking often encourages us to ignore the difficulty or to simply affirm that everything will be okay. Stoicism does not ask us to pretend the obstacle isn't real or difficult. Instead, it demands that we look directly at the obstacle and ask a different question. Not, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "What does this situation require of me?" The obstacle itself presents the specific virtue we need to practice. A frustrating delay calls for patience. A frightening situation demands courage. A complex problem requires wisdom and creativity. The obstacle is not an interruption of your journey. It is an essential part of the curriculum for your growth. It is the specific test you need to pass to reach the next level of your personal development. Consider a modern parallel from the world of business. Imagine an entrepreneur who pours their heart and savings into launching a new product, only to see it fail in the marketplace. The conventional reaction might be one of devastation, a sense of total loss. This is viewing the failure as a pure barrier, a dead end. But the individual who has internalized this Stoic shift sees the same event through a different lens. The failure of the product is not the end of the action. It is the very thing that advances the action. It becomes a priceless opportunity. It is a chance to practice resilience by getting back up. It is a chance to practice humility by admitting the misstep. Most importantly, it is a chance to practice creativity and wisdom by analyzing what went wrong, gathering feedback, and innovating a new, better solution. The setback provides data and experience that success never could. Some of the most successful companies in history were born from the ashes of a previous failure, precisely because the founders used the obstacle as fuel for a more refined and powerful vision. This principle applies to every aspect of our lives. A difficult relationship is not just a source of conflict. It is an opportunity to practice understanding, compassion, and the art of communication. A period of ill health can feel like a limitation, but it can also be a forceful teacher of patience, a reminder of the body's fragility, and a catalyst for adopting a healthier lifestyle. The Stoic shift is to actively search for the virtue that the circumstance invites you to develop. The obstacle is the way because the path to virtue is never a smooth, straight line. It is paved with the stones of difficulty that strengthen our resolve and clarify our purpose. So let's bring this home. Look at your own life right now. Identify one current obstacle that feels significant. It might be a professional challenge, a personal goal that seems out of reach, or a recurring source of friction in your day-to-day life. Now apply this shift. Instead of seeing it as a wall, see it as a doorway. Ask yourself, what specific quality could this obstacle help me cultivate? If it requires endurance, it is an opportunity to practice patience. If it involves risk or fear, it is a call to courage. If it is complex and confusing, it demands wisdom. How can you consciously use this very challenge as the raw material for building a more resilient and virtuous version of yourself? There is a single, undeniable truth that touches every single life, from the most powerful emperor to the most humble citizen. everything changes and everything ends. This is not a pessimistic statement, but a simple, sober fact of existence. The seventh profound cognitive shift in our journey through Stoic wisdom is the full embrace of this reality, known by the Latin phrase Memento Mori, remember you must die. Far from being a morbid or frightening fixation, this practice is one of the most liberating tools the Stoics offer us. It is a conscious reminder of our mortality, not to instill fear, but to create a powerful sense of urgency, to cultivate a deep and abiding gratitude for the present moment, and to sharpen our focus relentlessly on what is truly significant in our brief and precious time. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps more than any other Stoic, returned to this theme again and again in his private writings. He would remind himself of the fleeting nature of not only life but of all worldly pursuits. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." And in another passage, he reflects on the transience of fame, noting how quickly even the most celebrated names are forgotten, swallowed by the endless river of time. For him, this wasn't a source of despair, it was a clarifying lens. Imagine holding a finely crafted hourglass, watching the sand trickle from the top bulb to the bottom. The Memento Mori practice is like turning that hourglass over each morning and acknowledging that some of your sand has indeed fallen. This isn't meant to cause anxiety about the sand running out. It's designed to make you appreciate the value of each individual grain still remaining. It asks the vital question, if this day contained a finite number of moments, how would you choose to spend them? Would you waste them on petty grievances, on chasing hollow accolades, or on worrying about things outside your control? Or would you invest them in acts of kindness, in pursuit of genuine virtue, and in cherishing the people who matter most? The beauty of this shift is that it can be anchored in the simplest of daily observations. You don't need to dwell on dramatic images of skulls or graves. The principle of impermanence is on display all around us. Consider the sunset. Each evening, the sky paints itself in a breathtaking, unique masterpiece of color. But you know with absolute certainty that in a matter of minutes, those brilliant hues will fade into darkness. Does that knowledge ruin the sunset? Does it make you appreciate it less? Quite the opposite. Its very temporariness is what makes it so profoundly beautiful and worthy of our full attention. In the same way, the fleeting nature of a conversation with a loved one, the temporary health of your body, or the brief window of an opportunity, all of these become more precious, not less, when we recognize they are not permanent fixtures. Memento Mori teaches us to see the sunset in every single day. This practice has a remarkable way of burning away the trivialities that so often consume our mental energy. The rude comment from a stranger, the minor inconvenience, the obsession with acquiring more stuff when viewed against the backdrop of our finite existence, these things lose their power to upset us. They are revealed as the distractions they are. Instead, what rises to the surface are the things of enduring value, our character, our relationships, our contributions, the quality of our thoughts. Remembering that we are mortal is the ultimate tool for prioritization. It forces a kind of mental triage, compelling us to ask again and again, does this truly matter? So let's make this deeply personal. I want you to truly sit with this question, not as a hypothetical, but as a serious inquiry into how you are living your life. If you began each morning with a genuine, heartfelt reminder that your life is finite, that this day is a gift not to be squandered, what one thing would you do differently today? Would you finally have that difficult but necessary conversation you've been avoiding? Would you spend an extra 15 minutes truly playing with your child, phone put away? Would you let go of a grudge that has been weighing you down? The power of Memento Mori lies in its ability to transform that someday into today, because it reminds us gently but firmly that someday is not a guarantee. But here is a question that strikes at the very heart of our modern identity. How much of who you believe yourself to be is actually tied up in the things you own? The car you drive, the title on your business card, the designer label inside your jacket, the number in your bank account. We live in a world that constantly encourages us to build our identity upon these external pillars, to see our possessions and achievements not just as things we have, but as fundamental components of who we are. This leads us to the eighth profound cognitive shift, which is the Stoic realization that you are not your possessions. Your true self exists entirely separate from the external objects you accumulate, and understanding this distinction is one of the most liberating forms of mental freedom you can ever experience. The Stoics had a precise and powerful term for all these external things. They called them indifference. Now, this is a term that is often misunderstood. It does not mean that we should be apathetic or not care about them at all. Instead, it signifies that these things, our health, our wealth, our reputation, our property, do not contribute to our moral worth or our essential character. They are indifferent to our virtue. A Stoic would classify them as either preferred indifference or dispreferred indifference. It is naturally preferred to have health rather than sickness, to have wealth rather than poverty. But the crucial distinction is that neither health nor wealth is good in the Stoic sense, just as sickness and poverty are not evil. Why? Because a virtuous person can be happy and fulfilled even in poverty or poor health, while a corrupt person remains miserable even with immense wealth and perfect health. The good and the evil lie only in our choices, in our character, not in the external circumstances. The great teacher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave, drove this point home with unforgettable clarity. He said, "You are not your body nor your possessions. You are your faculty of choice. You are your will." He instructed his students to regularly remind themselves that the things they love, their family, their home, their land, are merely on loan from the universe. He suggested saying about any cherished object, "You are not mine, you are just as you are." This practice is designed to create a healthy psychological distance. It is the difference between saying, "I am a successful person because you have a luxury car," and saying, "I happen to own a car." The first statement fuses your identity with an object that can be damaged, repossessed, or become obsolete. The second statement acknowledges a simple fact of ownership, leaving your core sense of self untouched and secure. To feel the power of this shift, consider the emotional turmoil that follows the loss of a prized possession. Imagine you have a family heirloom, a watch passed down from your grandfather. It is not just a timepiece, it is a repository of memories, a symbol of your heritage, a part of your story. Now imagine it is stolen or lost in a move. The grief can be profound, almost like losing a part of yourself. This intense pain is a direct signal that you have, perhaps unconsciously, tied a portion of your identity and your worth to that physical object. The Stoic shift asks you to untangle that knot. The memories of your grandfather, the values he represented, the love you felt, those are internal. They reside within you. They are part of your character and your mind. The watch was merely an external trigger for those beautiful internal qualities. Losing the watch is a dispreferred indifferent, an inconvenience, a sadness. But it cannot and does not take away the love, the memories, or the values that truly define you. The suffering comes from the mistaken belief that the external object was an essential part of yourself. When you realize that your true self, your capacity for love, memory, and virtue remains completely intact, the sharp edge of the loss is dulled, replaced by a grateful remembrance of what can never be taken away. This is not an easy shift to make because we are culturally conditioned to do the exact opposite. We are taught to display our success through our acquisitions. But this makes our inner peace hostage to fortune. Your sense of worth becomes something that can be inflated by a bonus or shattered by a market crash. The Stoic alternative is to build your identity on the one foundation that is truly unshakable: your character, your principles, your ability to choose your response with integrity, no matter what you own or lose. So let's bring this into a quiet moment of self-examination. Think about your own life. What is one thing you own that you feel, on some level, truly defines you? It might be your house, your professional certification, a piece of jewelry, or even the number of followers you have on a social media platform. Now, ask yourself a deeper question about that belief. If you were to imagine that thing being suddenly gone, what does your fear of that loss say about where you have currently placed your sense of worth? Is it resting on the solid ground of your own character, or is it precariously balanced on an external object that, by its very nature, is temporary and beyond your ultimate control? Acknowledging this attachment is the first and most courageous step toward the profound freedom of knowing that you, your essential self, are so much more than anything you could ever own. Now picture a fortress, not one made of stone and mortar, but a stronghold built within the quiet center of your own mind. This is the ninth profound cognitive shift, the cultivation of what Marcus Aurelius called the Inner Citadel. He envisioned a place of retreat inside himself, an inviolable sanctuary where his true self resided, a self that could never be harmed by the chaos, criticism, changing fortunes of the external world. The fundamental realization here is that while we cannot control the storms that rage around us, the stressful news, the demanding boss, the unexpected setbacks, we have absolute sovereignty over the world within. The walls of this inner fortress are built from our reasoned judgment, our principles, and our ability to choose our response. Nothing from the outside can breach those walls unless we willingly open the gates and grant it entry. This shift is the ultimate act of building resilience. It's not about building a wall to hide from life, but about creating a base of operations so secure that you can engage with life more fully and courageously, knowing you always have a place of peace to return to. Think of the metaphor of a well-built house in the middle of a violent storm. The wind howls, the rain lashes against the windows, and lightning flashes across the sky. The storm represents the external chaos, the pressures of work, the opinions of others, the relentless stream of information and demands. But inside the house, if the foundation is solid and the structure is sound, there is a profound sense of calm and safety. You can watch the storm through the window, acknowledging its power, but you are not out in it being battered by its force. You are sheltered. Your inner citadel functions in exactly the same way. It allows you to observe the external turmoil without being consumed by it. You can feel the stress of a looming deadline without letting that stress shatter your concentration. You can receive criticism without letting it dismantle your self-worth. The chaos is real, but it remains outside. Your peace, your core equanimity, remains intact within. The practice of strengthening this inner fortress is a daily discipline. It begins with the conscious act of retreating into your own judgment. When you feel yourself becoming overwhelmed by a situation, the first step is to pause and mentally step back from the noise. Ask yourself a simple but powerful question. What part of this turmoil is actually happening to me, and what part is simply happening around me? The event itself is external. The emotional storm it triggers, however, is internal, and that is the territory you command. Marcus Aurelius would constantly remind himself that external things cannot touch the soul. They cannot force an opinion upon it or disrupt its judgment unless the soul itself assents. The noise of the world is just noise. It only becomes a disturbance when we invite it in, when we agree with its disruptive message. By regularly practicing this mental separation, observing the external event without immediately fusing with it, you are laying another brick in the wall of your citadel. Each time you choose a calm response over a reactive one, you are reinforcing the roof against the storm. So, let's bring this from the philosophical to the practical. I want you to think back over the last few days. When was the last time you felt genuinely overwhelmed by external noise? It might have been a barrage of emails that threw your entire afternoon into disarray, a heated argument that left you feeling rattled for hours, or even just the constant ping of notifications pulling your attention in a dozen different directions. In that moment, the external world felt like it was crashing in, and your inner peace felt fragile, perhaps even absent. Now, with the concept of the inner citadel in mind, consider this. How could you begin to strengthen that sanctuary this very week? The reinforcement doesn't require a grand gesture. It could be as simple as committing to 5 minutes of quiet meditation each morning before checking your phone, creating a literal and mental buffer before the day demands begin. It might involve writing down your core values in a journal, reminding yourself of the principles that define you, so that when external opinions clash with them, your foundation remains unshaken. Or perhaps it's the practice of taking a single, deep breath before responding to a provoking message, creating that crucial space where your reasoned judgment can take over from your raw impulse. Your inner citadel is built one conscious choice at a time, each small act of mindfulness adding another layer of protection against the chaos, until you find that no matter how fierce the storm outside, the peace within becomes your unshakable default. How often do you find yourself checking for likes on a social media post you just shared, or feeling a pang of disappointment when a project you worked hard on goes unnoticed by your boss? This hunger for external validation is a deeply ingrained human tendency, a social reflex that often quietly steers our actions. The 10th cognitive shift invites us to question this very motivation, to move from acting for the applause of others to acting from a deep, internal sense of purpose. This is the Stoic ideal of doing the right thing simply because it is the right thing, finding your entire satisfaction in the virtue of the action itself, completely independent of the recognition, reward, or outcome it might produce. Marcus Aurelius offered a powerful image for this state of mind. He advised himself to be like the rock that the waves crash against. It stands unmoved while the water around it froths and subsides. The rock doesn't care if the waves are praising it or criticizing it. Its purpose is simply to be a rock, solid and unwavering. In the same way, our purpose is to act with integrity and virtue. The opinions of others, whether flattering or harsh, are like those waves. They are external forces that come and go. They are not part of our essence. When we tie our sense of accomplishment to them, we hand over control of our inner peace to the fickle tides of outside judgment. The shift is to become that rock, to find an unshakable foundation within your own principles, so that your actions are guided by an internal compass, not by the desire for a spotlight. Consider the simple yet profound act of performing a good deed anonymously. Imagine you see a stranger struggling with heavy groceries to their car. The conventional praise-seeking action might be to help them, but to do so in a way that ensures they see your face and thank you profusely, perhaps even hoping someone else is watching. There's nothing wrong with receiving gratitude, of course, but the Stoic test is this: would you still perform that act of kindness if you knew with absolute certainty that no one would ever know you did it? If the answer is yes, then you are acting from a place of genuine virtue. You are helping because it is the right and helpful thing to do, because it aligns with your character as a person who aids others. The satisfaction comes entirely from the act itself, from the quiet knowledge that you lived up to your own standards. That internal satisfaction is far more durable and fulfilling than any fleeting compliment, because it can never be taken away from you. It is a reward generated from within. This shift has profound implications for our work and creative pursuits as well. An artist who creates purely for the potential of fame or financial windfall is building their happiness on a foundation of sand. If the acclaim doesn't come, they may abandon their craft in bitterness. But an artist who creates because they feel a deep, internal compulsion to express themselves, who finds joy in the very process of bringing an idea to life, possesses a renewable source of motivation. The outside world's response becomes secondary. They can appreciate positive feedback without becoming dependent on it, and they can withstand criticism without being derailed by it, because their core reason for creating remains untouched. Their purpose is in the doing, not in the reception. This is what it means to act with purpose, not for praise. It is to decouple your self-worth from your external performance metrics and reconnect it with the quality of your effort and the integrity of your intentions. So let's turn this lens inward for a moment of honest reflection. Think back to a recent action you took. It could be something significant, like leading a project at work, or something small, like offering advice to a friend. Now, gently examine your motivation. Ask yourself the pivotal question: were you doing it primarily for the right reason because it was the virtuous, helpful, or necessary thing to do? Or was a part of you, perhaps a large part, secretly hoping for the approval of others? Were you looking for that promotion, that thank you, that acknowledgement that you are smart, capable, or kind? There is no judgment here. This is simply an exercise in self-awareness. Recognizing the subtle pull of external validation is the first and most crucial step toward reclaiming your own internal authority. When you can act from that pure place of purpose, you tap into a wellspring of quiet confidence that no amount of outside praise could ever match. Our desires are like the currents of a river, pulling us relentlessly in one direction or another. But have you ever stopped to consider that not all desires are created equal? Some flow from our basic human nature, like the need for nourishment, shelter, and companionship. Others, however, are like powerful, artificial whirlpools created by the machinery of society, culture, and our own unchallenged assumptions. This brings us to the 11th cognitive shift, a truly transformative practice the Stoics called the discipline of desire. This is not about crushing your wants or living a life of barren austerity. It is the far more nuanced art of retraining your desires, of carefully examining each one and consciously aligning it only with what is truly good, that is, with virtue, and with what is authentically within your power to attain. The ancient teacher Epictetus placed this discipline at the very center of a good life. He famously said, "Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it." At first, this sounds almost backwards. We are taught that freedom is the ability to get what we want. But Epictetus is pointing to a deeper truth. When your happiness is dependent on satisfying a desire for something outside your control, you have effectively made yourself a slave to that external thing. Your inner peace rises and falls with the whims of fortune. The real freedom, the unshakable kind, comes from desiring only those things that are guaranteed to you by your own nature, to act with justice, courage, moderation, and wisdom. When your deepest desire is simply to be a virtuous person, you carry the fulfillment of that desire with you at all times. No one can prevent you from choosing wisely. No external event can rob you of your character. This is the profound shift, moving from wanting to have things to wanting to be a certain way, regardless of what you have. Let's make this incredibly practical with an example that touches nearly every modern life: the craving for social media validation. You post a photo or a thought, and then you find yourself checking your phone repeatedly, waiting for the likes and comments to roll in. That desire for digital approval feels intensely real. But if we apply the Stoic filter, we see it clearly. Is the number of likes on a post within your control? You can hope for them, you can craft a clever post to attract them, but ultimately, the reactions of others are not yours to command. This desire is inflamed by the false belief that your worth is measured by this external metric. It is a desire for an indifferent and a preferred one at that. Contrast this with the desire for inner tranquility. Is that within your control? Absolutely. You can cultivate it through practices like mindfulness, through applying the dichotomy of control, through choosing not to be disturbed by the absence of digital applause. The desire for tranquility is a desire for a state of your own soul, something you can work toward and achieve through your own efforts. By shifting your primary desire from the first to the second, you exchange a source of constant anxiety for a wellspring of enduring peace. You are no longer a puppet whose strings are pulled by notifications. This discipline requires us to become detectives of our own minds, to catch our desires in the act and subject them to a simple test. When a strong want arises, ask yourself two questions. First, is the object of this desire something within my complete control? If the answer is no, if it involves other people's opinions, specific outcomes, or the possession of things, then recognize that pursuing it will inevitably introduce friction and potential disappointment into your life. The second question is even more important. Is this desire aligned with virtue? Will fulfilling it make me more courageous, more just, more temperate, and wiser? If the desire is for revenge, for excessive luxury at the expense of others, or for cutting corners, then it is a desire that, even if fulfilled, will damage your character. The goal of the discipline of desire is to gradually, patiently, prune away those desires that are rooted in false beliefs and external dependencies, and to actively water and nurture the one central desire that leads to true freedom. The desire to live a life of excellence and integrity, no matter what the external world provides. So let's turn this inward. Look at the landscape of your own wants. What is one specific desire you currently hold that, if you could magically eliminate it from your psyche, would instantly bring you a greater and more lasting sense of peace? Is it the desire for a particular person's approval, the craving for a newer, fancier car, the yearning for a rival to fail? Simply identifying this desire, seeing it clearly for the source of agitation that it is a monumental act of applying the 11th shift. It is the first step in retraining your heart to want what is truly good for it. This brings us to a crucial pivot in how we engage with the world around us. We have explored the discipline of desire, which focuses on aligning our inner wants with what is good and within our control. Now we turn our attention outward to the 12th cognitive shift, the discipline of action. This is the Stoic principle that our actions in the world should not be primarily for personal gain or recognition, but for the common good. It is a move away from a self-centered existence toward a life guided by a profound sense of duty to our fellow human beings and the wider community we are all a part of. The philosophical foundation for this is beautifully illustrated by the Stoic philosopher Hierocles and his concept of the circles of concern. He asked us to imagine a series of concentric circles. At the very center is your own mind. The next circle out is your immediate family. Then comes your extended family, followed by your local community, your country, and finally, the entire human race. The common, instinctual approach is to pour all of our energy and concern into that innermost circle, caring little for those on the outside. The goal of the discipline of action, however, is to consciously work to draw those outer circles inward. It is to extend the same sense of care and duty we feel for our family to our neighbors, our colleagues, and ultimately to strangers across the globe. We are social creatures, and our virtue is expressed through our contribution to the social whole. Marcus Aurelius embodied this ideal relentlessly. Despite the immense power he wielded as emperor, he constantly reminded himself that his purpose was not self-indulgence but service. He wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." For him, an action that did not in some way contribute to the well-being of the human community was an action devoid of its highest purpose. To see this shift in practice, consider a simple, everyday scenario. You are walking down the street and you see a piece of trash on the sidewalk. The self-centered action, or perhaps the action of mere convenience, is to walk right past it. It is not your trash after all. Why should you bother? But the individual practicing the discipline of action sees the same situation through a different lens. Picking up that piece of litter is not about earning praise from someone who might be watching. It is not even about your own personal preference for a clean environment, though that is part of it. It is an action performed as a duty to the common good. You are contributing to the cleanliness and order of a shared space, a small but tangible act that benefits everyone who uses that sidewalk. You are, in a tiny but meaningful way, drawing the circle of your concern outward to include your entire community. The satisfaction comes not from a reward, but from the knowledge that you have performed your social duty. You have acted as a good citizen of the world. This discipline transforms mundane tasks into opportunities for practicing virtue. Holding a door open for someone behind you becomes an act of civic kindness. Offering a genuine word of encouragement to a struggling coworker becomes a contribution to a healthier, more supportive work environment. Even doing your job with integrity and diligence, when viewed through this lens, is no longer just about earning a paycheck. It is about fulfilling your role in the intricate web of society, providing a valuable service or product that benefits others. The focus shifts from "what's in it for me" to "how does this action serve a purpose larger than myself?" This is not about becoming a self-sacrificing martyr. It is about recognizing that our own well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of the whole. A thriving hive is good for every single bee. So, as you move through the rest of your day, I invite you to carry this question with you as a practical guide. In your very next interaction with another person, whether it is with a family member, a cashier, or a colleague on a video call, ask yourself, how can I orient this action toward the common good? It might mean choosing patience in a frustrating conversation, offering help without being asked, or simply listening with your full attention. Each small, deliberate action, performed with a sense of shared humanity, becomes a brick in the foundation of a more virtuous life. Between the event itself and the emotional storm that often follows, there exists a fleeting, almost imperceptible space. It is in this momentary gap that one of the most powerful and subtle Stoic practices takes root, a practice known as the Discipline of Assent. This 13th cognitive shift is about mastering that critical interval, the brief pause between receiving an initial impression and granting it your full belief. It is the practice of becoming the gatekeeper of your own mind, learning to critically examine the raw data that floods your senses before you accept it as an unquestionable truth. For the Stoics, particularly Epictetus, this discipline was the very bedrock of emotional self-regulation, the mechanism that allows us to intercept a destructive thought before it can unleash a cascade of negative feelings. Epictetus taught that our troubles begin not with events but with our opinions about them. He said, "Men are disturbed not by things but by the views which they take of them." An impression, what he called a fantasia, is simply that, an appearance, a piece of information presented to the mind. It is neutral in itself. It has no inherent power to hurt us. The power is bestowed the moment we give our assent, the moment we nod in agreement and say, "Yes, this impression is true and accurate, and I will react accordingly." For example, if someone makes a critical comment about your work, the initial impression is merely the sound of their words. The suffering begins when you instantly assent to an accompanying, unspoken impression. This person is attacking my competence. This is a threat to my reputation. I must defend myself. You have moved from a simple observation to a full-blown, emotionally charged narrative in a fraction of a second, and your anger or anxiety is the direct result of that unchecked assent. The transformative power of this shift lies in inserting a moment of conscious inquiry into that automatic process. Instead of allowing the impression to pass directly through to your emotional center, you learn to hold it at the gate for examination. Imagine your mind as a courtroom. The impression is a witness giving testimony. The discipline of assent is the act of being a skeptical, thorough judge. You do not immediately accept the testimony as fact. You cross-examine it. You ask, is this impression accurate? Is it complete? What evidence supports it? What alternative interpretations might exist? By doing this, you reclaim your sovereignty. You are no longer a passive recipient of emotional triggers. You become an active investigator of your own perceptions. Let's apply this to a scenario nearly everyone has experienced. You send a detailed, thoughtful message to a colleague and receive a terse, one-word reply, "Okay." The initial impression hits you like a splash of cold water. Almost instantly, a story forms in your mind. They're angry with me. They're dismissing my idea. They don't respect my work. This narrative feels utterly real, and it triggers a mix of defensiveness, irritation, and worry. This is the moment of automatic assent. Now apply the discipline, pause, examine the impression, ask the witness on the stand some questions. Is the testimony they are angry actually true? What is the hard evidence? All you have is a single word. Could there be other, equally plausible explanations? Perhaps your colleague is simply in a hurry, rushing between meetings. Maybe they are typing on their phone and find it difficult to write a long response. It's even possible they meant, "Okay, I agree, let's move forward," and saw no need for elaboration. By questioning the initial negative impression, you drain it of its destructive power. The event remains the same, a short message, but your judgment about it has shifted from a catastrophic interpretation to a neutral or even benign one. The anger simply has nowhere to land. This practice is the ultimate tool for emotional resilience because it attacks negative feelings at their source. It recognizes that our emotions are not direct responses to the world, but responses to our judgments about the world. By taking command of the judgment process, we gain indirect but profound control over our emotional landscape. It is not about suppressing feelings, but about ensuring they are based on reasoned assessment rather than reflexive, often flawed, assumptions. The goal is to reach a point where you can observe an unsettling impression without being carried away by it, to see the thought without becoming the thought. This creates a stability that external events cannot easily shake. So, to make this personal, think back over the last 24 hours. Can you recall a specific instance where you felt a sudden surge of a negative emotion, annoyance, jealousy, insecurity? Now trace it back. What was the initial impression that sparked it? Did you pause to question that impression, or did you accept it immediately as the whole truth? What was the consequence of that automatic assent? Did it lead to an unnecessary argument, a day of simmering resentment, or a loss of focus? Simply by recognizing that moment of unconscious agreement, you take the first step toward installing a wiser, more deliberate gatekeeper at the door of your mind. Now, let's expand our vision beyond the self, beyond our immediate circles, and consider a perspective that can fundamentally alter our sense of place in the world. I want to invite you to see yourself not as an isolated individual navigating a chaotic and separate universe, but as an integral, conscious part of a vast, rational, and beautifully interconnected whole. This is the 14th cognitive shift, the stoic principle of Sympatheia, a profound sense of cosmic interconnectedness. The word itself comes from the Greek, meaning fellow feeling or common experience, and it represents the idea that the entire cosmos is a single, living, breathing organism, and that each of us is a vital part of that greater body. This shift moves us from a mindset of separation to one of profound belonging, dramatically reducing the feelings of loneliness and alienation that can so often plague modern life. The Stoics, observing the orderly movements of the stars, the changing of the seasons, and the intricate dependencies within nature, developed a powerful sense of a universal reason, a logos that permeates everything. They believed that every event, every person, and every atom is part of a single, coherent system. Marcus Aurelius meditated on this constantly, drawing strength from the perspective it provided. He wrote, "All things are woven together and the common bond is sacred. Hardly anything is alien to anything else. Things are co-ordinated together, and together they make up the one order of the universe. There is one universe made up of all things, and one God who pervades all things, and one substance, and one law, and one common reason in all intelligent beings, and one truth." For him, this wasn't an abstract philosophical concept. It was a practical tool for dissolving personal grievances and fostering a deep sense of kinship with all of existence. When you truly feel that you are part of this vast web, your personal problems, your conflicts with others, begin to shrink to their proper proportion. You are no longer a solitary ship battling the ocean. You are the ocean itself, experiencing a temporary wave. To grasp the tangible reality of this interconnectedness, consider the simple analogy of a magnificent tapestry. Imagine a huge, intricate wall hanging, rich with color and detail, depicting an entire world. From the front, you see the complete picture, the landscapes, the figures, the story. Now turn it over. On the back, you see the countless individual threads, some long, some short, of different colors, all knotted and woven together in what seems like a chaotic mess. A single red thread might run for a while, then disappear under a bundle of blue, only to re-emerge later. That single thread is you. You have your own color, your own length, your own specific path. It is easy, from your perspective, to see only your own thread, to feel separate from the blues and greens and golds. You might even feel tangled with a thread of a different color, experiencing friction and conflict. But if you could see the tapestry from the front, you would understand that your red thread is absolutely essential. It provides the accent for a flower in a field. It outlines the edge of a mountain. It is part of the hero's cloak. Without it, the picture would be incomplete. Your thread and every other thread is interdependent. The friction between your thread and another is not a sign of a flaw. It is a necessary part of the tension that creates the overall image's depth and beauty. The conflict is not a separation but a different kind of connection. This shift in perception has a direct and calming effect on how we handle personal disputes. When you are locked in a conflict with someone, a family member, a co-worker, a neighbor, it is incredibly easy to see them as an opponent, an obstacle, an alien force acting against you. The mindset is one of me versus you, but Sympatheia invites you to zoom out to the tapestry level. You and this other person are both threads in the same universal weaving. You are both expressions of the same fundamental nature, subject to the same laws of cause and effect, both striving in your own flawed ways for what you perceive as good. This doesn't mean the conflict isn't real or that you shouldn't stand your ground on matters of principle, but it does change the emotional charge. It replaces animosity with a kind of cosmic curiosity. Instead of thinking, "How can I defeat this person?" you might begin to ask, "What is this interaction teaching us both? How is this friction contributing to the larger pattern of which we are both a part?" This perspective fosters empathy because you recognize that the other person's actions, however hurtful, are coming from their own limited perspective, their own set of knots and tangles, just as yours are. You are both playing your part in a drama much larger than either of you, so take a moment to apply this shift to a current or recent tension in your own life. How does viewing both yourself and the other person as interconnected threads in a vast, sacred tapestry change the way you feel about the conflict? Does it lessen the urge for retaliation and increase the space for understanding? Does it transform a battle into a difficult but necessary part of a shared journey? Consider for a moment where your mind tends to reside. Is it replaying a conversation from yesterday, a mistake from last year, a regret that lingers like a ghost? Or is it projecting itself into an imagined tomorrow, anxiously scripting a meeting that has not happened, worrying about a problem that may never materialize? The 15th cognitive shift is a stark and liberating homecoming to the truth that the past is an unchangeable memory, and the future is a complete uncertainty. The only moment that is real, the only moment in which you are truly alive and possess any agency whatsoever, is this one right now. The Stoics understood that our power to live virtuously, to exercise our reason, to make good choices, to be fully human exists exclusively in the ever-unfolding present. The Roman philosopher Seneca, in his profound letters to his friend Lucilius, lamented our peculiar human tendency to squander this singularly real moment. He observed that we are often amidst things that are to come but do not live in the present. We borrow trouble from a future that may never arrive, and we chain ourselves to a past that we cannot alter. He writes with piercing clarity, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. You are arranging what lies in fortune's control and abandoning what lies in yours." This is the core of the shift, recognizing that worry is a form of misplaced attention, a theft of the only time we truly own. When your mind is lost in anxiety about next week's deadline, it is completely absent from the task you could be accomplishing at this very desk. When you are consumed by a past embarrassment, you are blind to the beauty of the person sitting across from you in this moment. The present is not just one point on a timeline. It is the very ground of action, the only stage upon which the drama of your life can actually be performed. This shift from living in the abstract to anchoring in the immediate is not merely a philosophical idea. It is a practical skill that can be cultivated. One of the simplest and most powerful techniques is to use your own breath as an anchor to the here and now. Your breath is always with you, a constant rhythm that exists only in the present. You cannot breathe yesterday's breath or tomorrow's. So, when you feel your mind being pulled into the whirlpool of past regret or future anxiety, you can consciously return to this anchor. You don't need a special room or a half-hour meditation session. You can do it right now as you listen. Simply notice the sensation of the air entering your nostrils, filling your lungs, and the gentle fall of your chest as you exhale. Do this for just 3 full cycles. In that brief space, you are not worrying about your finances or reliving an argument. You are just breathing. You have successfully shifted your consciousness from a fictional problem to an actual, embodied experience. This act of grounding creates a small pocket of calm, a clearing in the forest of your thoughts, from which you can then choose your next action with reason and clarity, rather than reacting from a place of fear or nostalgia. The Stoic focus on the present is ultimately about reclaiming your sovereignty over the only realm where you are truly the emperor. The past is a foreign country with laws you cannot change. The future is a shadowy frontier yet to be mapped, but the present moment is your kingdom. It is the only place where your will can be exercised, where your character can be expressed, where your virtue can be made manifest. To neglect it is to be a ruler in exile, fretting over lost territories and potential invasions while your actual throne sits empty. Embracing the present is not about hedonism or ignoring consequences. It is about bringing the full force of your attention and intention to the single point in time where you can actually make a difference. So let's make this shift tangible and immediate. Ask yourself this question not as a theoretical exercise, but as a direct command for action. What is one practical, concrete step you can take right at this moment to anchor yourself more fully in the present? It might be as simple as feeling the texture of the table beneath your fingertips, listening intently to the specific sounds around you, or taking that one conscious breath. Whatever you choose, the act of choosing it right now is the essence of the shift. It is the decision to stop being a ghost of the past or a phantom of the future, and to fully inhabit the life that is happening now. Listen to the soundtrack of a typical day, and you will likely hear a constant, low hum of complaint. The weather is too hot or too cold, the coffee line is too long, the internet is too slow, our colleague is too difficult. This habit of vocalizing what is wrong, what is lacking, what is an inconvenience, is so ingrained in modern life that we often do it without a second thought. But have you ever considered the true cost of this mental chatter? Every complaint, whether spoken aloud or just repeated in the silence of your own mind, is a direct investment of your attention into what you do not have, what you wish was different, what is outside your control. It is a reinforcement of a mindset of scarcity and victimhood. The 16th cognitive shift is a decisive move away from this draining cycle and toward a state of active, deliberate gratitude. This is not about slapping a happy face over genuine pain. It is a stoic practice of retraining your focus to see the good that is already present, even, and especially, within the context of difficulty. The Stoic teacher Epictetus, who knew a great deal about hardship from his life as a former slave, offered remarkably straightforward guidance on this very point. He advised, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." This is the essence of the shift. It is a conscious decision to redirect your mental energy from lamenting absences to celebrating presences. The power of this practice lies in its ability to fundamentally alter your baseline experience of reality. When your default mode is to notice what's missing, life perpetually feels like it's falling short. But when you cultivate a habit of seeking out what is already here, life begins to feel abundant, even when your external circumstances are objectively challenging. Gratitude, in the Stoic sense, is a form of spiritual discipline, a way of building an inner fortress of contentment that is independent of the ever-changing conditions of the outside world. To see how this works in a situation that would typically invite complaint, consider the example of facing a significant professional challenge, like a project that is far behind schedule and over budget. The natural response is a cascade of grievances, complaints about unrealistic deadlines, about uncooperative team members, about a lack of resources. This focus on everything that is going wrong only amplifies the stress and sense of helplessness. Now apply the Stoic shift. Instead of complaining about the challenge, what if you actively searched for aspects of it to be grateful for? This might feel counterintuitive at first, but the opportunities are there. You could feel gratitude for the chance to practice problem solving under pressure, which is building your resilience. You might be grateful for the opportunity to practice leadership and patience with your team, strengthening your character. You could even feel a strange sense of gratitude for the sheer difficulty itself, because it is revealing your own limits and showing you exactly where you need to grow. The project hasn't changed, but your relationship with it has transformed from one of resistance and victimhood to one of engagement and opportunity. The challenge ceases to be a monster to be slain and becomes a tough but valuable teacher. This practice has a remarkable way of revealing the hidden abundance in what we normally take for granted. When we are healthy, we rarely think to be grateful for the simple ability to take a deep breath or walk without pain. It is only in the threat of illness that these fundamental gifts come into sharp focus. The Stoic practice of gratitude is about bringing that sharp focus into every single day without needing a crisis to remind us. It is about noticing the warmth of the sun on your skin, the taste of clean water, the reliable functioning of your heart and lungs, the presence of a friend who will listen. These are not small things, they are the very foundation of our existence. By consciously acknowledging them, we shift our life's narrative from one of perpetual wanting to one of profound receiving. We realize that we are already living in the midst of countless miracles, and that realization creates a deep and unshakable sense of peace. So let's pause and make this shift tangible right where you are. Whatever may be happening around you, whatever hardship or annoyance you might be facing, I want you to ask yourself this question and truly sit with the answers. What are 3 things, however seemingly small or insignificant, that you can be genuinely, authentically grateful for in this very moment? It could be the device that allows you to listen to this, granting you access to ancient wisdom. It could be the chair that supports your body. It could be a memory of a kindness someone showed you yesterday. The specific objects matter less than the act of focusing your mind on them. In that act, you are not denying your problems. You are simply choosing to build your inner strength on a foundation of what is good and present, rather than depleting your energy on what is absent. What if the relentless pursuit of more is actually the very thing standing between you and the happiness you seek? Our culture is built on a powerful, almost unquestioned assumption that acquiring more money, more possessions, more status, more experiences will lead to a more fulfilling life. Advertisements, social media, and even our own internal dialogues constantly reinforce this narrative of lack, suggesting that contentment is just one more purchase, one more achievement away. The 17th cognitive shift in our Stoic journey directly confronts this illusion. It is the art of finding profound contentment with less, a practice the ancient Stoics called voluntary simplicity. This is not about embracing poverty or advocating for a life of grim deprivation. It is a sophisticated and liberating strategy for increasing your happiness by strategically and intentionally decreasing your desires. The Stoic philosophers Seneca and Musonius Rufus were powerful advocates for this way of life, despite their own positions in society. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, wrote extensively about the dangers of luxury and the freedom found in simplicity. He argued that wealth is not the problem is our attachment to it. He observed that it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. His contemporary, Musonius Rufus, taught that living on simple, inexpensive food was not only good for the body but essential for training the soul. For them, the goal was not the mere absence of things, but the presence of a powerful sense of sufficiency. The shift is internal. It's about reducing the wanting itself, not necessarily the objects of that want. When you declutter your desires, you create immense space for tranquility, focus, and appreciation. You move from being a slave to your cravings to being the master of your needs. To feel the tangible difference this shift can make, consider the experience of eating a meal. Picture two contrasting scenarios. In the first, you are at an extravagant, multi-course feast. The table is overflowing with rich, complex dishes, yet you are distracted checking your phone, worrying about work, barely tasting the food in front of you. The experience is blurry, stressful, and ultimately unsatisfying despite the luxury. Now picture a second scenario, a simple bowl of soup, a piece of fresh bread, and a glass of water. But in this case, you are fully present. You notice the warmth of the bowl in your hands, the aroma of the herbs, the satisfying texture of the bread. You eat slowly with gratitude. There are no distractions. This simple meal, consumed with mindful attention, can be a source of deep pleasure and genuine contentment. The Stoic point is clear. The value of an experience is not determined by its external lavishness, but by the quality of attention and appreciation we bring to it. The second meal, with less in terms of quantity and cost, offers more in terms of authentic satisfaction because your desire for distraction and novelty has been quieted. This principle extends far beyond the dinner table. It applies to our wardrobes, our schedules, our digital lives, and our social commitments. The modern world encourages a kind of spiritual obesity, an accumulation of so much stuff, information, and activity that we become mentally sluggish and emotionally numb. The practice of voluntary simplicity is like a spiritual fast. It is the conscious choice to remove the non-essential so that the essential can speak more clearly. This might mean dedicating one evening a week to silence and reading instead of streaming services and social scrolling. It could involve a commitment to not buying new clothes for a season, discovering the freedom of having fewer choices each morning. It might look like pruning your calendar of optional obligations to create space for deep, uninterrupted work or for genuine connection with loved ones. In each case, you are choosing less in the external world to gain more peace, clarity, and agency in your inner world. The freedom you discover is not from things themselves, but from the constant burden of wanting, managing, and worrying about them. This shift invites a profound redefinition of wealth. True wealth, from a Stoic perspective, is not measured by what you own, but by what you can joyfully do without. It is the wealth of a mind that is not perpetually restless, of a spirit that finds sufficiency in the present moment. Every time you consciously choose simplicity over complexity, presence over distraction, and enough over more, you are depositing another coin in the bank of your inner tranquility. This is a form of security that no market crash can threaten. So let's bring this challenge home. Look around your life, at your habits, your possessions, your commitments. Where do you feel the weight of excess? What is one specific area where you could experiment with the art of contentment with less? Perhaps it is your digital diet, committing to a 30-minute timer on social media. It could be your consumption habits, deciding to repair an item instead of immediately replacing it. Or maybe it is the constant noise in your environment, choosing to drive in silence instead of with the radio on. The specific area matters less than the intention behind the experiment. What small act of voluntary simplicity could you introduce this week to taste the surprising freedom that comes from wanting less? Think about the last time someone cut you off in traffic, or sent you a curt email, or made a thoughtless comment that stung. How quickly did a label form in your mind? What a jerk, how incompetent, they're so selfish. This rush to judgment is one of our mind's most automatic and corrosive habits. We see a sliver of someone's behavior, a single frame from the movie of their life, and we instantly write the entire script for them, complete with motives and character flaws. The 18th cognitive shift, a profound practice in empathy and humility, is the move from this snap judgment toward a deeper, more charitable understanding. It is the decision to withhold our verdict and instead make a genuine effort to see the world through the other person's eyes, a practice strongly advocated by Marcus Aurelius in his private reflections. The Stoic emperor frequently reminded himself that when people act in ways we find frustrating or offensive, it is often because they are acting from a place of ignorance about what is truly good. He wrote, "When another blames you or hates you, or people voice similar criticisms, go to their souls, penetrate inside, and see what sort of people they are. You will realize that there is no need to be racked with anxiety that they should hold any particular opinion about you. This is not about dismissing others, but about understanding them." Marcus is suggesting that harmful actions usually stem from a mistaken belief, a confusion about where real good and evil lie. The person who seeks to harm you with words likely believes that their reputation or their victory is a genuine good, failing to understand that true good resides only in their own character. When we judge them harshly, we are often making the same mistake in reverse, believing that their action is a true evil that has the power to damage us, rather than seeing it as an external event, an indifferent whose power comes only from our judgment of it. To feel the transformative power of this shift, let's construct a scenario that might feel familiar. You're in a team meeting at work, presenting an idea you're passionate about. A colleague, let's call him Mark, immediately shoots it down with a dismissive tone. He points out flaws, his criticism feels personal, and he seems intent on undermining you in front of your manager. The automatic judgment is swift and severe. Mark is a political player, he's threatened by me, he's trying to make me look bad to advance his own career. This narrative fills you with anger and defensiveness. It poisons your interactions with him for the rest of the day, perhaps even longer. Now apply the Stoic shift. Withhold that initial verdict. Instead, step back and try to see the situation from Mark's perspective. What unseen factors might be influencing his behavior? Perhaps he received devastating personal news this morning and is operating from a place of pain and distraction, his sharp tone a misdirected expression of his own inner turmoil. Maybe he is under immense pressure from his own boss to cut costs, and his criticism, though poorly delivered, stems from a genuine concern about the project's budget, a concern he feels is his duty to raise. It's even possible that he sees a real, unaddressed risk in your idea that you have missed, and his social skills are simply too blunt to communicate it constructively. None of these more charitable explanations excuse rude behavior, but they completely reframe it. The action is no longer a malicious attack from a villain. It is a flawed action from a fallible human being who is likely struggling with their own battles, their own ignorance, their own pain. This understanding doesn't force you to agree with him, but it drains the situation of its personal venom and allows you to respond with calm reason rather than reactive anger. This practice of seeking a charitable explanation is the bedrock of compassion and the ultimate antidote to conflict. It recognizes that everyone is the hero of their own story, and from their perspective, their actions make perfect sense. The rude cashier isn't inherently rude. She might be exhausted from a double shift caring for a sick child. The impatient driver isn't fundamentally aggressive. He might be racing to the hospital to see a loved one. This shift is not about being a naive pushover. It is about being a wise observer of human nature. It is the understanding that assigning negative motives to others is a heavy burden to carry, one that clouds our own judgment and peace of mind. By choosing understanding over judgment, we free ourselves from the endless cycle of taking offense. We build bridges instead of walls, and we create the possibility for dialogue where there was only monologue. So I invite you to a moment of quiet, honest reflection. Bring to mind someone you have judged harshly in the recent past, someone whose actions irritated or hurt you. It could be a family member, a co-worker, or even a public figure. Now, set aside your initial interpretation for just a moment. Ask yourself this pivotal question: what might be a more charitable, more humane explanation for their behavior? What unseen struggles, what fears, what misunderstandings or deeply held but mistaken beliefs could have led them to act in that way? In the space created by that question, you may find that your judgment softens, replaced by a curiosity that is the beginning of true wisdom. What if the secret to building unshakable resilience wasn't about avoiding hardship, but about occasionally and intentionally seeking it out? This brings us to the 19th cognitive shift, a practice that might seem counterintuitive at first glance: the deliberate embrace of voluntary discomfort. This is not about punishing yourself or a descent into masochism. Rather, it is a proactive training regimen for the mind, a way to inoculate yourself against the inevitable shocks and setbacks of fortune by willingly exposing yourself to manageable doses of difficulty. The Stoics, like the famously unyielding Cato the Younger, understood that a life lived exclusively in pursuit of comfort creates a fragile individual, one who is easily broken when true adversity arrives. By voluntarily stepping into discomfort, we are not seeking pain for its own sake. We are conducting a drill, strengthening our psychological muscles so that when an involuntary challenge strikes, we are not paralyzed by fear but are already familiar with the terrain of difficulty. The crucial distinction here lies in the intention. A masochist finds pleasure in pain itself. A Stoic practicing voluntary discomfort finds strength in the mastery over their reaction to that discomfort. The goal is to prove to yourself in a controlled environment that you can endure more than you think, that your peace of mind is not dependent on perfect external conditions. It is the mental equivalent of a fire drill. You don't hope for a fire, but you practice the evacuation so that if a real fire occurs, your response is calm, practiced, and effective. The voluntary cold shower is a perfect example. The initial shock is real. Your body and mind scream in protest against the discomfort, but in that moment you have a choice. You can flee back to the warmth, or you can stay, breathe through the sensation, and observe your own capacity to endure. Each second you remain under the cold water, you are not just getting clean, you are sending a powerful message to your subconscious: I can handle this. My will is stronger than this temporary physical sensation. This tiny daily victory builds a reservoir of confidence that you can draw upon when facing a much larger, involuntary discomfort, like a professional rejection or a personal loss. This principle can be applied in countless small ways throughout your week. It could be as simple as choosing to walk to the store instead of driving on a chilly day, consciously feeling the cold air on your skin without complaint. It might be skipping a meal occasionally, not for dietary reasons, but to remind yourself that hunger is a temporary state that you can manage with equanimity. You could choose to sit on the floor for a while instead of a comfortable chair, or take the stairs instead of the elevator. The specific act is less important than the conscious intention behind it. Each time you choose a minor hardship over a readily available comfort, you are performing a repetition in the gym of your soul. You are reinforcing the Stoic truth that your well-being is an internal state, not an external condition. You are proving that you are the master of your body and its appetites, not their servant. This practice cultivates a profound sense of self-reliance, a knowledge that even if you were stripped of all your modern conveniences, your core equanimity would remain intact because it is built on something far more durable than material comfort. The power of this shift lies in its ability to reframe our entire relationship with adversity. We begin to see comfort not as a default state to which we are entitled, but as a pleasant exception that should be appreciated, not expected. Difficulty ceases to be an unwelcome intruder and becomes a familiar, even welcome training partner. This doesn't mean you stop enjoying life's pleasures. On the contrary, it allows you to enjoy them more fully because you are no longer anxiously clinging to them, terrified of their loss. You can savor a warm bed precisely because you have occasionally chosen a harder one. You can appreciate a delicious meal more deeply because you know you are capable of facing a simpler one without despair. Voluntary discomfort is the key that unlocks a more grateful and resilient appreciation for the good times, because you have built your foundation on the solid ground of self-mastery, not the shifting sands of fleeting comfort. So, as you consider the week ahead, ask yourself this practical and empowering question. What is one small, voluntary discomfort you can intentionally introduce to strengthen your tolerance for life's inevitable adversities? Now, let's shine a light on one of the most common and draining habits of the human mind, the act of worry. At its core, worry is a peculiar form of self-inflicted suffering, a tax we pay on a disaster that has not yet happened and may never come to pass. It is the experience of feeling anxious or troubled about a potential future event, almost always one that lies almost entirely outside the sphere of our direct control. We fret about a medical test result, we agonize over a future conversation, we lose sleep imagining the worst-case scenario for a project at work. This 20th cognitive shift is the stark and liberating realization of the sheer futility of this mental activity. Worry is not a form of problem-solving. It is a form of self-torment that accomplishes absolutely nothing except for the erosion of your present moment peace. The Stoic philosopher Seneca captured this truth with unforgettable precision when he wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think about the profound weight of that statement. How many hours or even days have you spent agonizing over an upcoming event, a difficult conversation with your partner, a performance review at work, a flight you're nervous about taking? Your mind spins out elaborate narratives of everything that could go wrong, conjuring up vivid scenes of conflict, failure, or embarrassment. You feel the adrenaline, the knot in your stomach, the tension in your shoulders as if the event were happening right now. This is the suffering in the imagination that Seneca describes. And then, when the actual event arrives, what happens? 9 times out of 10, the reality is far less dramatic, far more manageable than the horror story your mind had concocted. The conversation is awkward but productive. The review contains constructive feedback you can use. The flight is perfectly smooth. The suffering was almost entirely contained within the period of anticipation. The worry was the real ordeal. The event itself was merely an event. To see the crucial distinction this shift requires, consider the common experience of preparing for an important presentation. There are 2 entirely different ways to approach the days leading up to it. The first is the path of worry. You lie awake at night picturing yourself stumbling over your words. You imagine the critical faces in the audience. You feel a sense of dread about the whole affair. This is pure, unproductive suffering. It drains your energy, clouds your thinking, and does precisely zero to improve your actual performance. Now, contrast that with the second path, the path of preparation. Preparation is action. It is within your control. It involves reviewing your notes, practicing your delivery, anticipating questions, and ensuring your slides are clear. Preparation is useful, practical, and it actively builds your confidence because you are engaging with what is actually yours to command. Worry, on the other hand, is a passive state of fear about outcomes you cannot guarantee. The Stoic shift is to recognize this difference and to consciously redirect the mental energy you would have spent on worry into the constructive channel of preparation. You acknowledge the presentation is important, you do the work that is within your power to do, and then you make the conscious choice to release the anxiety about the result, because the result, how the audience receives it, is not yours to control. This practice of releasing worry is a discipline of the mind. It begins with the simple act of applying the dichotomy of control as a filter for your anxieties. The next time you feel that familiar knot of worry forming, pause and ask yourself a direct question. Is the object of my worry within my control? If you are worrying about whether it will rain on your outdoor event tomorrow, the answer is no. The weather is a classic external. Your worry will not change the atmospheric conditions. What is within your control? You can prepare a backup plan. You can have a tent on standby. You can decide that you will have a good time regardless. By shifting your focus from the uncontrollable outcome to the controllable actions, you transform helpless anxiety into empowered readiness. The same principle applies to larger concerns. Worrying about the health of a loved one changes nothing about their condition, but channeling that concern into being present with them, offering support, or expressing your love are actions that are deeply within your power and that have real value. Worry is the shadow, action is the substance. This shift is ultimately about reclaiming the only time that is truly yours, the present. When you are lost in worry about the future, you are effectively abandoning the present moment, the only place where you can actually live, love, and act. You are paying a heavy price of today's peace for a tomorrow that may never unfold as you fear. The Stoic invitation is to stop paying that tax. It is to understand that while it is wise to be prepared for life's challenges, it is foolish to suffer from them twice, first in your mind, and then, if it must be, in reality. The goal is to meet the actual challenge when it comes, with a mind that is clear, resilient, and rested, not one that is already exhausted from a prolonged battle with phantoms. So, let's bring this from the philosophical to the practical with a question that can create immediate space in your mind. What is one specific thing you are currently worrying about that you know, on a rational level, is entirely outside your control? It might be the decision of a hiring manager, the actions of another person, or the outcome of a global event. Simply identifying it and labeling it as uncontrollable is the first step. Now, can you make the conscious, deliberate choice, even if just for the next hour, to release it? Can you set that particular burden down and redirect your attention to something in this present moment that you can influence? This act of release is not a denial of the issue. It is an affirmation of your own sanity and your right to peace. It is the decision to stop suffering in advance and to start living right now. But pause for a moment and ask yourself a deeply unsettling question. Who actually wrote that definition of success you're striving for? Is it authentically yours, crafted from your own values and deepest understanding of a life well lived? Or is it a script you unconsciously inherited from the culture around you, from advertisements, social media feeds, and the quiet, comparative chatter at social gatherings? The 21st cognitive shift is perhaps one of the most liberating of all, because it invites you to fire the external committee that has been grading your life and to become the sole, sovereign author of your own definition of success. The Stoic shift is a move away from the brittle, external markers of wealth, status, and fame, and toward an internal, unassailable metric, success as living a life of virtue, integrity, and in accordance with your own rational nature. This is not a modern self-help platitude. It is a radical philosophical repositioning that goes back to the very core of Stoic thought. The great teacher Epictetus, whose entire philosophy was built on the foundation of the dichotomy of control, made a crucial distinction that cuts to the heart of this matter. He taught that things like wealth, reputation, and power are not up to us. They are externals subject to the whims of fortune. Therefore, he argued, they cannot possibly be the ingredients of true success, because real success must be something we can achieve through our own efforts alone. If your success depends on a booming stock market, the approval of a fickle public, or beating out a competitor, then you have built your happiness on a foundation of sand. True success for a Stoic is found exclusively in the realm of what is up to us: our judgments, our choices, our actions, our character. It is the success of acting with courage when you are afraid, with justice when you are tempted to be unfair, with moderation when you are surrounded by excess, and with wisdom when the situation is unclear. This kind of success cannot be taken from you by a market crash, a negative review, or a rival's promotion. It is an internal victory, and it is the only kind that ultimately matters. To see the stark difference this shift creates, let's paint a picture of two contrasting lives. First, consider the individual who has achieved everything society tells us to want. They have a 7-figure salary, a luxury car, a sprawling home, and a high-profile career that makes them a minor celebrity in their field. From the outside, they are the very image of success. But on the inside, they are a wreck. They are chronically anxious, fearing the loss of their status. They are plagued by imposter syndrome, feeling they don't deserve their position. Their relationships are strained or transactional because they have no time for genuine connection. They are, in a very real sense, miserable. Now contrast this with a second individual. This person might be a teacher, a carpenter, or a community volunteer. They live a simple, relatively anonymous life. They will never be featured in a magazine or command a stage. But they go to bed each night with a clear conscience. They treat everyone they meet with respect and kindness. They take pride in doing their work well, not for applause, but because it aligns with their integrity. They face difficulties with resilience and grace. By the Stoic definition, which of these two lives is truly successful? The first person is successful only by an external, fragile standard that they themselves may not even believe in. The second person is successful by an internal, robust standard that provides daily peace and enduring fulfillment. The shift is to realize that the second person, despite their anonymity, is in fact the richer one. This is not to say that having wealth or recognition is bad. In Stoic terms, they are preferred indifference. It is perfectly reasonable to prefer them. The critical error is in mistaking them for the goal itself. They are, at best, potential tools that can be used virtuously or viciously. Wealth can be used to create opportunities and help others, or it can be used for HOLLOW Chinese letter. Fame can be a platform to spread good ideas, or it can be an addiction to validation. The Stoic definition of success forces us to look past the tool and focus on the craftsman. A successful life is not defined by the quality of the tools in your shed, but by the skill, integrity, and purpose with which you use whatever tools you have. This is why a Stoic can find success in a prison cell like Socrates or in exile like Seneca, because their virtue remained entirely within their control. Their success was untouchable, so the challenge this shift presents is perhaps the most personal and profound one you will ever undertake. It requires a quiet audit of your own soul. I want you to imagine a thought experiment. Strip away everything that society uses to measure a person's worth. Strip away your job title, your bank balance, your possessions, your social media following, even your educational degrees. Imagine yourself standing in a quiet, empty space with nothing but your own character, your past actions, and your future choices. In that stark and honest place, ask yourself the only question that truly matters. How would I, from this moment forward, define a successful life for myself? What qualities would I want to cultivate? What kind of person would I want to become? What small, virtuous acts would fill my days with a sense of purpose that no external reward could ever match? The answer to that question is your personal compass. It is the definition of success that can guide you through any storm, because it is built on the one thing that can never be taken from you: your power to choose who you are regardless of what you have. Now consider the typical soundtrack of your day. It probably begins with an alarm, followed by the buzz of a phone, the hum of traffic, the chatter of news or podcasts, the relentless ping of notifications, and the endless internal monologue planning, worrying, and replaying conversations. We live in an age of unprecedented noise, both external and internal, a constant barrage of stimulation that leaves little room for the mind to simply be. This brings us to the 20-second cognitive shift, a profound move away from this cacophony and toward the stoic sanctuary of silence and stillness. This is not merely about finding a quiet room, though that can help. It is about cultivating an inner quiet, a purposeful stillness of the mind that allows your own reason, your inner guide, to be heard above the din. Marcus Aurelius, despite leading the Roman Empire at the height of its power and noise, was a fervent practitioner of this inward retreat. His meditations were not written for an audience. They were his private journal, composed in the stolen moments of silence he carved out for himself, likely before the dawn or after the day's duties were done. In those quiet spaces, he would converse with himself, examining his impressions, reinforcing his principles, and listening to the voice of his own rational nature. He understood that clarity cannot emerge from chaos. Just as you cannot see the bottom of a pond when the water is perpetually stirred up, you cannot access the depths of your own wisdom when your mind is constantly agitated. The shift to seeking silence is therefore a shift toward clarity. It is the conscious decision to lower the volume on the world's static so that the subtle, steady signal of your own judgment can come through. This practice is about creating a vacuum, an empty space in your schedule and in your consciousness. In nature, a vacuum always seeks to be filled. If you create a space of silence in your mind, what rushes in to fill it is not more noise but a deeper awareness. It is in these moments of quiet contemplation that the puzzles of the day begin to untangle themselves, that creative solutions emerge seemingly from nowhere, and that you can hear the quiet whisper of your conscience, guiding you toward what is right. This is not a passive state of blankness. It is an active, receptive state of listening to the most important voice you will ever hear, your own. The goal is to become so familiar with this inner stillness that you can access a pocket of peace even amidst the noise, like finding a calm eye in the center of a hurricane. The practical application of this shift can be astonishingly simple, yet its effects are transformative. You do not need to book a week at a silent retreat to begin, though that could be a powerful experience. The transformation starts with a modest daily commitment. Consider dedicating just 5 minutes each day to absolute silence. This means no music, no podcast, no scrolling, no talking. You can sit comfortably, close your eyes, and simply focus on the natural rhythm of your breathing. Your mind will, of course, rebel at first. It will try to fill the space with thoughts, to-do lists, and fragments of songs. That is perfectly normal. The practice is not to stop the thoughts, but to stop actively engaging with them. Observe them like clouds passing across the sky of your mind, without latching onto them or judging them. Gently, each time you notice your attention has wandered, guide it back to the anchor of your breath. In those 5 minutes, you are not doing nothing. You are doing the most important thing. You are recalibrating your inner compass. You are reminding your mind what it feels like to not be pulled in 10 directions at once. You are strengthening the muscle of attention, which is the foundation of all Stoic practice. The power you discover in this stillness is not a power over the external world, but a power over your own internal world. It is the power to choose where you place your attention. It is the ability to step back from the reactive cycle of stimulus and response and to insert a moment of conscious choice. When you cultivate a regular practice of silence, you begin to carry a small reservoir of that calm with you throughout your day. The stressful email arrives, and instead of immediately firing off a reactive response, you find you can take one deep, silent breath, a miniature version of your 5-minute practice, and from that still point, craft a reasoned and effective reply. The value of silence, therefore, is not in the escape it provides, but in the strength it returns to you for engaged and purposeful living. It allows you to participate in the world without being consumed by it. So, as you move through the remainder of this day, I invite you to pose a very practical question to yourself. It is not about finding a huge block of time, but about seizing a small, potent opportunity. When exactly can you carve out a moment of true silence today to simply be with your own thoughts? Perhaps it is during your morning coffee before anyone else is awake. It could be in your car after you park before you get out and step into the next demand. It might be as simple as turning off the radio on your drive home and just listening to the sound of the road. Identify that moment and protect it. In that intentional quiet, you are not withdrawing from life. You are returning to the source of your own wisdom, preparing to meet the world from a place of profound inner strength. And so we arrive at the final and perhaps most potent of these 23 cognitive shifts, a concept we visited earlier but now return to with a different lens. We began with Memento Mori as a tool for gratitude and perspective, for seeing the sunset in every day, but now we turn it into a catalyst for action. This is the shift from viewing death as a distant terror to be avoided, to embracing it as the ultimate motivator, the one deadline that can instantly clarify everything. The Stoic practice is not to dwell morbidly on the end, but to hold the finitude of life gently in your mind as a lens that brings what is truly important into sharp, undeniable focus. The Roman philosopher Seneca, in his essay on the shortness of life, delivers a stunning reversal of conventional wisdom. He argues that life is not short, we simply make it so. He writes, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested." This is the heart of the shift. When we live as if we have an endless supply of tomorrows, we fall into the trap of procrastination and distraction. We delay difficult conversations, postpone creative projects, and tolerate soul-draining situations because there always seems to be more time. But the moment we internalize the reality that our time is finite, that this year, this month, this very day could be our last, a profound urgency awakens within us. The trivialities that once consumed our attention begin to fall away, and the essential things rise to the surface with startling clarity. Think of the powerful focusing effect of a work deadline. When a project is due in 3 months, it's easy to meander, to get lost in minor details, to allow yourself to be pulled in other directions. But when that deadline is suddenly moved to tomorrow, an incredible transformation occurs. All non-essential activity ceases. Your mind becomes a laser beam, concentrated exclusively on the core objective. Distractions become invisible. You tap into reserves of energy and creativity you didn't know you had. Why? Because the constraint of time forces a ruthless prioritization. Now, imagine applying that same deadline intensity to your entire life, with the gentle but constant awareness that your time is limited. This is what Memento Mori in its most active form can do. It transforms life from an open-ended, often aimless, exploration into a purposeful project with a defined timeline. It asks the question, if you knew the deadline was approaching, what would you stop wasting your energy on, and where would you channel your focus? This shift has a remarkable way of burning away the inauthentic. The desire to impress people you don't respect, the fear of what others might think, the accumulation of possessions for the sake of status, these pursuits lose all their power when held against the backdrop of your own mortality. They are revealed as the hollow diversions they are. What remains is what truly matters, the quality of your relationships, the integrity of your actions, the contribution you make, the love you give and receive, and the courage to become who you are truly meant to be. Death, in this Stoic view, is not the enemy of life. It is the very thing that gives life its shape, its stakes, and its profound beauty. A song is beautiful precisely because it ends. A story is compelling because it has a final chapter. In the same way, your life gains its meaning from its finitude. The awareness of the end is what makes the middle so precious. So, as we conclude this journey through these 23 quiet revolutions of the mind, I want to leave you with a final question, one designed to bridge the gap between ancient philosophy and the immediate reality of your life today. It is a question that cuts through the noise and goes straight to the heart of purposeful living. Don't answer it quickly, sit with it, let it work on you. If you were to receive a genuine and certain diagnosis that you had 1 year left to live, not a moment more, what would you immediately stop doing, and what would you courageously begin? The stop list is often the easier one to compile. You would stop complaining about trivialities. You would stop sacrificing your happiness for a future that is not guaranteed. You would stop holding grudges and caring about the opinions of strangers. The start list is where your true priorities lie. You would start having that long, postponed conversation. You would start writing that book, learning that instrument, traveling to that place. You would start spending vastly more quality time with the people you love, expressing your appreciation openly and often. You would start living each day as if it were a signature on the masterpiece of your life. This is the ultimate gift of the Stoic shift, using the awareness of the end to fully inhabit the glorious, fleeting, and infinitely valuable present. And so, we have journeyed together through these 23 quiet revolutions of the mind. What may have begun as a collection of ancient philosophical concepts has hopefully revealed itself to be something far more practical, a toolkit of cognitive shifts, each one a powerful key for applying timeless Stoic wisdom to the beautiful, chaotic reality of modern life. The core message that binds them all together is profound in its simplicity. The quality of your existence is not determined by the events that happen to you, but by the judgments you make about them. By consciously altering that inner lens, you can fundamentally change your entire relationship with reality, transforming challenges into training grounds, obstacles into opportunities, and the fleeting present into a space for profound peace and purposeful action. It is crucial to remember that the power of this philosophy does not lie in a single, dramatic, overnight transformation. The real magic is found in the quiet, consistent, daily practice of returning to these shifts again and again. It is in the moment you choose to apply the dichotomy of control during your morning commute, or when you consciously practice Amor Fati in the face of a minor setback. This is not about perfection, it is about progression. Each small effort to see the world through a Stoic lens is like a single brick laid in the foundation of a more resilient and tranquil mind. The goal is not to never feel anger or anxiety again, but to meet those feelings with a new awareness, to understand their source, and to choose your response with greater wisdom. This is a lifelong journey of cultivation, not a quick fix. To send you on your way, let's reflect on a final, unifying thought from the great teacher Epictetus, who perfectly captures the essence of this entire endeavor. He said, "Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control and some things are not. This is the bedrock." All 23 shifts flow from this single, life-altering distinction. The happiness Epictetus promises is not a fleeting emotion dependent on external fortune. It is the deep, abiding contentment that arises when you stop trying to command the ocean and instead learn to skillfully sail your own ship, regardless of the weather. It is the freedom that comes from investing your energy exclusively in the one true domain you govern, your own mind. With this in mind, the most effective way to begin integrating this wisdom into your own life is not to attempt all 23 shifts at once, which would be overwhelming, but to start with intention. I encourage you to look back over this list and choose just one, or perhaps two, that resonated most deeply with you. Maybe it was the liberating power of the view from above to shrink your anxieties, or the profound calm that comes from the discipline of assent, learning to question your initial impressions. Whatever it may be, select that single shift and make it your personal practice for the coming week. Carry it with you as a lens through which to view your days. Notice when the old, automatic pattern arises and gently, without judgment, apply the new Stoic perspective. This is how philosophy moves from the page into the pulse of your daily life. As we bring our exploration to a close, I would love to hear from you and continue this conversation as a community. The real learning happens when we share our experiences. So, in the comments below, tell me this: which of these 23 cognitive shifts struck a chord with you? Which one feels most challenging or most immediately useful? Your insights not only enrich your own understanding but can profoundly inspire others who are on a similar path. And if you found value in this journey through Stoic wisdom and want to explore more ways to live with greater clarity, resilience, and purpose, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your time and your thoughtful attention. Here's to your journey toward a wiser, more tranquil life. This journey through these 23 shifts is really just the beginning of a much larger conversation, and that conversation truly comes alive with your voice in it. I am genuinely curious to know which of these mental realignments landed most powerfully for you. Was there one that immediately felt like a key unlocking a door you have been trying to open? Or perhaps one that seems particularly difficult to put into practice? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let me know, which of these 23 shifts do you find most challenging to implement in your own life? Your perspective is incredibly valuable, and by sharing our struggles and insights, we can all learn from each other and build a community dedicated to living more intentionally. If this exploration of Stoic wisdom has sparked a deeper interest, this channel is a dedicated space for putting these ancient principles into modern practice. We have entire playlists that dive much deeper into specific areas, like a series on applying the meditations of Marcus Aurelius to daily challenges, or a collection of guided exercises for building your own inner citadel. You will find links to those and more on the screen and in the description below, ready for you whenever you are ready to take the next step. Thank you sincerely for investing this time in yourself today. The decision to explore a more thoughtful way of living is a courageous one, and it is a privilege to share this path with you. If you found value here and want to continue this journey together, consider subscribing to the channel so you do not miss what is coming next. Until then, remember that the greatest changes begin not with a roar, but with a quiet shift in perception.